What better way to show your Port pride than the Keyport Football Alumni Association?
And the Keensburg Alumni Association presenting
the Keyport Red Raiders versus the Kingsburg Titans Alumni Football Game 2018.
Ooh, when?
And where?
Okay, on Saturday, June 16th at 4:05 p.m. at Kingsburg High School, the pads will go on again to keep the rivalry alive. It's a chance for alumni to play the game they love one more time.
The KFAA's yearly goals provide financial support to Keyport American Youth Football, Keyport High School Football, and also our annual scholarships to deserving seniors from KHS.
And it builds the bond between the two communities through volunteer, mentoring, and social activities.
Exactly. Please come out and support the Keyport High School alumni football team for this great event.
Tickets are $10 as of May 14th at the Board of Education office, Broad Street, Keyport, New Jersey.
Any t-shirts available?
Yes, t-shirts too. Your support helps the KFAA achieve those annual goals to support the youth in our community.
Need more information? Email keyportalumni@gmail.com.
Or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Again, that's June 16th with a 4:05 p.m. kickoff at Kingsburg High School.
Remember, once a Raider, always a Raider.
It's the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast with the Enforcer.
I believe they're called enforcers, Gordon. I sell women's shoes.
And the Stallion.
Stallion, baby! I am not what you would call a handsome man. I'll kick you in the nuts and you'll smile at me and like it. Oh, nuts!
Welcome to another edition of the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. We are your host. He is the Stallion. I am the Enforcer, and we are joined by a very, very special guest, albeit technical difficulties stood in the way. We powered through them. We would like to welcome Veda Scott to the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. Veda, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Well, I know it was a little bit tough getting you on, but like I said, we kept the positive energy, and we're gonna go right through that. So you've had quite a busy, I would say, last couple of weeks, and I know anybody who's following you on Instagram, social media, Twitter at It's Veda Time can see that you are one of the busiest people in the business. I can safely say that, but I would like to really kind of start from the beginning real quick. I know you were trained by Delirious and Daisy Hayes in the Ring of Honor dojo, and Ring of Honor back in that time wasn't necessarily known for women's division or women's matches. So what made you want to start, at the ROH dojo? Were you a fan of Ring of Honor previous to that?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I'm from the. Oh, is there feedback or something? I can't hear myself. Is it okay?
Oh no, I think we're good over here.
Okay. No, it's weird because I feel like I use every communication app that there is, and I've never used this particular one. I've never used this for calls or anything, so that's why it didn't work. Anyway, I am from the Philadelphia area, or I'm not from the Philadelphia area, but I've been living in the Philadelphia area, and was a huge wrestling fan. So of course I was an ROH fan, just a fan just in general of pro wrestling and indie wrestling, especially in that area. And I was also going to school in the area of the school of the wrestling school, which because of my education, it was kind of limiting my choices for wrestling school. But that was, and I say it was limiting my choices, but the limitation was within this area where there are a number of really, really good wrestling schools. So I kind of had to choose. I had to choose within this limited geographic area because I was in school. But ROH is what was the best fit for me, I felt, at the time. And you're right, they didn't have women's wrestling really happening there at the time. It's sort of in between their eras of women's wrestling. But that was fine because I didn't start training there with the intention of ever working there. I just did a wrestling school.
Oh, interesting. So you just started, in the dojo because it was a great place to train and that's where it was. But, your big picture wasn't necessarily working for Ring of Honor?
Right, because it didn't feel like an option. They didn't have women really on the roster, like we had said that they didn't have women's wrestling really wasn't happening there at that time. It's not that it hadn't, and it's not that it wouldn't. It just that's not where they were in their just what they were doing. So it didn't seem like a viable like it wasn't. I didn't start there because I saw it as like developmental or anything like that because it didn't come across like that ever. I wanted to get trained and I wanted a wrestling school. And obviously, like the networking there was incredible. I got to travel all over the country doing ring crew, met tons of people, and that's how I got my start. But yeah, ending up working there was really fortunate and unexpected.
Was it scary training with Delirious? That just the idea of that terrifies me.
I mean, I was trained by Daisy Hayes. Was really the person who did so much with me, and she was just a hero of mine in terms of wrestling too. So it was surreal to be in the ring with her, however many days a week. And then Delirious, of course, as long as you can understand what he's saying.
Yeah, which
has a good record as a trainer as well.
Which can be difficult. And you said you were going to school as well. If people follow you, they know, but not many people might know this. You went to law school and you completed law school as you completed professional wrestling school. How do you manage to do both?
So I was already in school when I started training, and a lot of people do that. A lot of people are balancing education and wrestling training and then eventually working in wrestling. And I think it's a matter for all of us of just time management and deciding like what your goals are. And if you have a goal to finish school, like for example, Britt Baker, who is a phenomenal women's wrestler out of Pittsburgh, she just finished dental school like last week. Like she just finished, she's a freaking dentist. She's a doctor. And she did all of this, like a good portion of her dental school and all of like her training and everything happened while she was working as a professional wrestler, and she wrestles all over the place. There's a lot of people who are trying to have that balance happen. And I'm not just talking about like graduate school or professional level school, but even just undergraduate is tough. When you're trying to be a wrestler, like you miss out on campus life, you miss out on so much of the university experience. And I think it's a sacrifice that a lot of people or a lot of fans maybe don't realize that some of the performers they're seeing are making. For me, law school is very difficult. It's very regimented. So part of it was just time management and not sleeping for 3 years of my life.
Well, I would say you can catch up on it now, but with your worldwide traveling, I don't think that's necessarily possible either. Having completed both, if you had to go back and do only one of them, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't practice law right now. So like on the one hand, you might say like, oh, that's, that was a lot of education and debt to not be a lawyer at this moment in time. But it was such a positive experience for me. I know it's something that will prove useful in the future. I made some of my best friends there. Like it was an experience that I would never, ever, ever want to get rid of. But at the same time, of course, like I can't imagine not being a professional wrestler. Like this is all I've ever wanted to do, truly. And it's all I feel ever have felt like that fit me. Like this is the only place I've ever really fit.
I know you said growing up you were a professional wrestling fan, and I believe you were a pretty big ECW fan, correct?
I was a fan of all wrestling. I've been a fan of all wrestling for my entire life. So anything that came along, I would just watch it obsessively.
Well, that's awesome. That's going to lead me into my next question. Every single person that we talk to on the All Night Long Wrestling podcast, we ask this question. Me and Joe are split down the middle. Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart?
I guess it depends on the factors that you're going into. I think I get more long-term watchability out of Shawn Michaels, I think. But Bret Hart, I think too. So my favorite wrestler of all time, I will say, is Owen Hart. Has been since I was a kid, which like difficult to find merchandise sometimes. It was like not the most popular choice, but so for me, I don't know, maybe there's like a bias in there because I always rooted for Owen, so I don't know, that could be that an ingrained bias.
That's a tough one. I think we've probably talked to maybe 20, 25 people on this show, and only one person has been on Team Bret Hart with me, and that was Solo Darling, who we spoke to last week. So, Joe, that's another win for you.
It's a
But
win
it's like
for the good guys.
it's not like I'm saying one is good and one is bad. Let's clarify that.
Right. Of course. I mean, these a lot of, these guys are like 1A and 1B in a lot of people's,
Right.
Top 10 of all time. So it's just, I'm going to catch up to you one day. Team Bret Hart will prevail. What was it? I believe you said Steve Corino was one of your favorite wrestlers out of ECW. Is that true?
Another favorite. I really like the entertainment aspect of professional wrestling, and he was very entertaining. I loved the incorporation of the old school and new school, and I loved that he could talk. So pretty much a lot of so again, this maybe the Owen Hart thing seems a little bit weird to come off this, but like people who are really, really good at drawing fans in on the microphone have always been appealing to me. I've realized as I've gotten older and thought about like what I enjoyed even as a fan, even before I knew nothing about wrestling other than like what I enjoyed. Just people who are big characters or could talk was always important to me.
Let me ask you right now, the current product. I know you said, you kind of watch everything. Who do you think right now is the best talker?
Oh God. Man, Alexa Bliss is so good. She's very, I think, very compelling. And has a lot of time to talk to. I don't know. I think, in terms of independent wrestling, I've been seeing a lot more recently. Like it seemed to go away for a little while, but more recently where people are just kind of putting out promos for their matches, which I think is neat. I think that's a neat way to like practice speaking and practice.
Yeah, it's kind of a throwback to the old school where, growing up, you would watch matches and they would have like each guy talk for maybe, 90 seconds in the back beforehand to kind of pump you up for the match. But now with YouTube, I think it's an awesome way for, people to get themselves out there, cut a promo, and then just post it to YouTube, and it be seen by 500,000 people in seconds. So I think that's awesome. I think you make a great point about that.
Yeah, and there's also this new breed of like super produced promos that are amazing too. There's a number of video editors out there that are working with professional wrestlers as well to put together these packages. But sometimes they're self-produced promos too. Like, Leva Bates always has really, really interesting character-based promos. Solo Darling, who you said you just had on, I guess it was last week, she usually has really, really compelling video packages that she makes herself. Like, I think that's cool too. That's an expansion of not even just like 90 seconds on YouTube, but people are taking it upon themselves to flesh out their characters through these little video packages. And that's kind of a throwback as well, because, back in the day, you would get video packages for people and it wouldn't be necessarily a promo. It would be them, out in quote unquote real life, but it'd be real life, like them, their job as a construction worker or whatever. And I think that's really cool too.
Or like the Big Boss Man had like weeks and weeks and weeks of him being a corrections officer. You're right. That's awesome. It's really it's a new wrinkle to the character. And I think it's a good time for it.
Yeah.
Do you watch NXT and WWE as well?
I watch everything. I watch all the wrestling that I can watch.
That is awesome.
It's important.
Let me ask you, I know, Shayna Baszler, NXT champion, Ronda Rousey in WWE. What's your take on, their characters? And do you think they're being, I know Shayna spent a lot of time on the independents and, she wrestled for AIW and things like that. But do you think they're kind of being, I don't want to say rushed, but maybe thrown into a spot where, creatively they're not ready for?
I mean, with something like that, though, like Shayna's so cool. Shayna's like so cool. And when you're around her, she is everything that she seems to be on screen. Like it's, to me, with something like that or something like Ronda, like they have this air of legitimacy about them, and anything else just doesn't seem credible. Like she's a badass, and that's real, and there's no way to hide that or slow that down. And I think now kind of what's happening in NXT, I like the development of things from what I'm watching and the spoilers. Like I said, I watch everything, because how can you not? Like, there's a lot of people who are professional wrestlers who don't seem to be wrestling fans, and I don't understand that. Like, you could say even that like something that you see on TV doesn't engage you or you don't enjoy it. But but to not pay attention